the story is told that after the war, they had the Nuremberg trials. And they hung 10 very prominent Nazis. They were supposed to hang 11, and Goering took his own life before they could kill him. And one of the 10 Nazis, as he was being hung or was being led to the gallows, made a comment about a happy Purim. Something to that effect, Purim Fest. And of course, people have been talking about it, that in the Aseres B'nai Haman, the 10 sons of Haman, there are 3 Asias Rapsai, there are 3 large letters, and they are Tov Shin Zayin. Tov Shin Zayin is 5707, which is the year when they were hung. And it was one of those extraordinarily precise phenomena that the Megilas Esther, which is over 2,000 years old, would have exactly the year in which these 10 Rishoyim would be hung. Now, obviously, this story is very bittersweet. It's bittersweet because what Haman wanted to do and failed completely, Hitler, Yamach Shmei V'Zichrei, tried to do, and he succeeded in a third. He killed 1 of every 3 Jews on the planet. Nevertheless, this is striking hashgacha, that 10 Nazis would be hung in the year Tov Shin Zayin, and that in the Aseres B'nai Haman, the letters Tov Shin and Zayin are large, is much, much more than coincidental. It's a case, it's an example where events happening in the world very seamlessly, very naturally are aligned with what's written in Torah. It doesn't happen often, but it happens occasionally, where something will happen in the world where you'll just stop and you'll pause and you say, ooh. You see the idea that the world is governed by Hashgacha Pratis in such a striking way, in such a simple and obvious way. The example that I recall, and at the time I remember we had a Fabrengen about it and it was discussed very profoundly, is the fact that Saddam Hussein was captured on Yotes Kislev. I don't know if you remember. And the simplicity of the Hashgacha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that a Rosh of this caliber would find his end on Yotes Kislev with Rosh Hashanah LeChasidus. And at the time we all talked about it. What's the miracle? What's extraordinary about it? If they wouldn't catch him today, they'd catch him tomorrow. They wouldn't catch him tomorrow, they'd catch him yesterday. And of course the answer is there is no miracle. There is just an aligning between the world and the inner world. The world of Elokus, the world of Torah, the world of Chassidus. And this Tov Shin Zayin detail, as bittersweet as it is, there was so much suffering and so much death, was meaningful to a lot of people. They saw it as a indication of the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in their lives under circumstances where so many were saying Les Din V'Les Dayin and Azav Hashem Es Ha'oretz and so on. And the same is true with the story of Saddam Hussein. Finding him on Yotes Kislev, the way it happened was quite significant and meaningful to people to whom that date has meaning and significance. And again, what's the miracle? They were going to capture him a day earlier or a day later. But the coincidence, the alignment of Ruchnius and Elam Hazeh, the spiritual world and the material world, reflects the presence of Hashem in our lives. What I'm saying, in other words, is this. When it comes to Purim, Chassidus discusses so much, and we talked about this in the beginning of this Maamar, that Purim is not a holiday of miracles. Purim is a holiday of the aligning of the Teva of the Eibishter's world and the will of God, and the interest of God, and the purpose of God. In the Purim story, there are no miracles, other than the precise ordering, arranging of a sequence of natural events which made complete sense in such a way that brought out such an incredible blessing for the Jewish people. The sum total of it is an overtness, is an incredible miracle, but the individual events are not miracles, they're simply coincidences, things that happen b'derech hateva. And of course, when you learn in Chassidus about this idea, what Chassidus says is this, that of course we believe in Hashgacha Pratis. It's axiomatic to our faith that everything that happens is by Hashgacha, everything that happens is by the divine hand, by an individual intervention and ordination of the Mashgiach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But usually we don't understand the significance and meaning of it. We believe that everything happens because Hashem makes it happen. And everything happens based on Hashem's will because it contributes to Hashem's purpose, like the Friedrich Rebbe says about the Baal Shem Tov Shita and Hashgacha Pratis, that every prat is negei l'kol kavanos habriyah. There's no tangential, there's no incidentals. Everything is very, very important, but you don't always see the Yad Hashem. And then there are times when you see the hand of God in nature, the hand of God in the world. Now, inasmuch as we see the hand of God in the world, there are a number of ideas. One idea is a miracle. A nes is a revelation of God in a way which is undeniable. Something happens which cannot be explained. Apiteva, nature cannot tolerate this kind of a phenomena, and yet it happens, and yet there are witnesses to it. It's called nes shalamayla min hateva. It's a miracle above nature. It's called a gili of shem havaya. The divine presence of Hashem is revealed into this world, and you see the mastery of the Eibishter over His world. But a nes is called shidud ma'aroches hateva, the violation of the order of nature as the Eibishter designed it. A miracle breaks nature. Then you have a second category, which is like a nes, a miracle. But it's nes hamalubit b'teva, a miracle which is concealed within nature. And then you have the miracle of nature itself, where something happens. You cannot call it a miracle, but it's so precise, it's so exact, that it shouts the Yad Hashem. It announces the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world in the most overt and the most obvious and the most pronounced and profound and obvious way. And basically that's what Purim is. Purim is not Gili Alakus in the sense of Nes overcoming Teva. Purim is Gili Alakus in the sense of the Teva itself cooperating, revealing the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the difference between Purim and all the other Yomim Tevim. Even Chanukah and certainly the Yomim Tevim which are Midei Raisa. In other words, the Purim story is not about a miracle. The Purim story is about a world where God and world are aligned. You know, Mashiach is going to come, yeah? Or in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, particularly the first Beis HaMikdash, there was a way of life. And that way of life revolved around Aser B'Shul Shetisasher. You do what Hashem wants and Hashem does what you want. And there was such a natural continuum between you doing the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Hashem doing your will that no, it wasn't considered miraculous, it was just a way of life. A Yid serves Hashem and Hashem serves a Yid. You know, by big tzaddikim, by special people, under certain conditions, you see the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you do good, when you do righteousness, the Eibishter rewards it with goodness and righteousness of His own. But you don't always see that, you understand? There are occasions where nature itself shouts, Ein Eid Milvadeh. The world just announces this world belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's really the story of Purim. That's really the story of Purim. The story of Purim is not a miracle. The story of Purim is the godliness of nature. And this, of course, explains what we spoke again also in the beginning, the fact that the Megilas Esther, there's no mention of Hashem's name. Not once is the name of Hashem mentioned. And it's really odd, because people in their common conversation, ordinary people, mention the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu constantly. And here you have a Shem Kaddish from Tanakh, a Sefer Kaddish, Kisvei Kaddish, which is written by Ruach HaKadosh and it's included in the Chavdalat Sfarim, and there's not a single mention of Hashem's name. It's really odd. It's really strange. And of course the answer is that the entire book is the name of God. In other words, the reason there's no name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because if there are words that denote names of Hashem, the other words don't denote names of Hashem. So you're contrasting or you're interfacing godliness with world. In the Megilas Esther, there's no interface between godliness with world, because world and godliness are one and the same. So every single word is a lakus. Every single word is world. Every single word is the interface between God, between the hashgacha of the Eibishter and the reality of the world. So his name is never mentioned because there's no superimposition of a higher thing over a lower thing, but rather it's all one and the same thing. And as you'll see in the class today, on line 186, the Alter Rebbe brings the pasuk, Ochen ata kel mistater. Ochen, it is true, you are a kel mistater, a God of concealment. Now the simple translation of kel mistater means a God that we cannot see. The deeper translation of kel mistater is a God that you see in concealment. There's no nest, there's no miracle, there's oilam kamin hagi noyeg. Everything is going along normal, orderly, naturally, and yet you see within that hesed, within that concealment, you see overtly Yadei Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the hand of God. Now the truth of the matter is, the real truth of the matter is, that the entire existence of the Jewish people is Ochenat Kel Mistater. The history of the Jewish people, the survival of the Jewish nation, is the long version of the Purim story. I saw in a Maamar from the Rebbe Rashab that he writes that Kifsa Achas ben Shivim Ze'evim V'hi Mishtameres. The idea that there is one sheep against 70 wolves and the sheep survives in spite of being cast out into Golus and scattered and dispersed and lost, Avdim and Idachim and all the rest. So the Rebbe writes, it's a bigger miracle than the miracle of the 10 Makis, the miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf, the miracle of Matan Torah. When they were the greatest miracles of all that happened, Shalei al pi teva lagamri, but this is greater than all of those because Jewish survival is extraordinarily miraculous because it's not a miracle. It's just the nature of the Jew. The nature of the meeting between the world and the Jew is that when you look at something in a narrow way, you see suffering. When you look at something in a narrow way, you say, Eiseseinu leira inu, and Enitani de adma. You don't see at all that the Jewish people are extraordinary, that the Jewish people have a special relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the Jewish people are honored and honor themselves. If you step back, and instead of looking at one person, or one moment, or one year, you look at a century or several centuries, and you observe the Jewish people over the globe, you realize that Baruch Yezerem Kayim, the Eibishter brings extraordinary tzaddas to the Jewish people, and he preserves them. And preserves them in a way which is very, very difficult to explain. I mean, just think about today, the Jewish people after the war, where the Jewish people have come in the last 70 years. It's completely remarkable. Totally remarkable. I mean, any nation who would have gone through, any group of people who have gone through a fraction of the torment, of the pain, of the suffering, of the abuse that the Jewish people went through during the war, would be so haunted by that it would take centuries for them to collect themselves. And the Jewish people just started over. It's a remarkable thing. What's the miracle? There's no miracle here. 6 million Jews died. There's no miracle. It's just the nature of the Jew. And the phenomena of Jewish survival, Kifsa Achas Ben Shivim Ze'evim, is, like I said earlier, it's the long version of the Purim story. It's not a miracle. It's the nature of the interface between God and His world, where the world does the will of God because God and the world are one. Eil Eilam, not Eil Ha'Eilam. Shows itself in certain things, and one of them is the survival of the Jewish people. And that's really what the Purim story is about. That's why the name of the Eibishter is never mentioned. So there's extremes here. One extreme is the concealment. You don't see miracles. There's no miracles. There's nothing in our lives suggests anything extraordinary. Nothing in our life stands out as being above the order of the world as it's designed within the parameters of nature on the one hand, which makes it very dark, very concealed. Kel mistater. On the other hand, you see the Yad Hashem, the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world in such an incredible way that you see that the world itself is filled with the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu when it comes to these things. And that's really the Purim story. So on the one hand, the Purim story represents the greatest darkness. On the other hand, the Purim story represents how in the greatest darkness you see the absolute truth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when Chassidus discusses this, they contrast this with a miracle. And of course, there's two sides to this coin. One side of this coin is that the miracles of Purim are less than the miracles of Chanukah and Yetzias Mitzrayim and all the rest, because they happen in Chutz La'aretz and Zman HaGolus, so there's limitations. It's lower than the others. On the other hand, it's higher than anything else because you're seeing the convergence of God and world. Even in the time of the greatest concealment, you still see the Hashgacha Al Yena, the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Purim story is a combination of the lowest and the highest. Hashem is completely concealed. And in that concealment, you see the ultimate expression of the hand of Hashem, that no miracle happens. The nature of the world just goes in the direction of the preservation of the Jewish people. And this is also the concept of Purim from the word goydol, a lottery, a lot. And of course, there's so much chassidus about the idea of goydol. There's so much chassidus about the idea of goydol. And we contrast it, or we compare it to the goydol of Yom Kippur. And the concept of goydol is you leave it to chance. You don't use your mind. You don't use your judgment. And chance, therefore, is out of your control. And you throw a goydol, and it comes out on a chodesh, which is very good for the Jewish people. And Haman doesn't even know it, so he thinks it's bad for the Jewish people. And he makes his plans for that chodesh, and that's the ultimate v'napechu, that all of the thoughts that Haman had to destroy the Jewish people based on the principle of goydel, this was the basis for the Nes. So a lottery, on the one hand, is a random thing. There's no meaning to throwing a lottery and pulling a name out of a hat. On the other hand, in a lottery, you have a Gilia Lakus, which is completely higher than Teva. In other words, you see the hand of Hashem in the world in a way that there's no separation between the world and Hashem. So Purim, if you will, is the highest and the lowest. And on this basis, we're going to begin tonight's class. We're going to start on line 168, which is where we're holding. Which explains the Chazal. Kol hanavim v'aksuvim asidim lihibatel. The Rambam actually brings us lahaloch in Hilchos Chanukah, Hilchos Purim. All the prophets and the writings will be nullified. Chutz Megilas Esther, against Megilas Esther, he brings two things: Megilas Esther and halachas. Megilas Esther is never going to be nullified, and halachas never going to be nullified. Ein asidim lihibatel, never going to be batel. The halachas we're going to visit on the next page, line 189, 190. Because the way it works is that the Rebbe is trying to suggest that Megilas Esther and halachas is Esther and Mordechai. Megilas Esther is Esther and halachas is Mordechai, as you'll see when we get to it. So the Chazal say, Mashiach comes, all the Nevi'im are batel except for Megilas Esther. What does that mean? We're going to throw them in the garbage, chas v'sholem? V'ha'inyan translates the Alter Rebbe. The meaning of this is that Masha Kosov, when it says in the Gemara Navi and Vaksuvim Asidim Li Batel that the prophets and the writings are going to be nullified when Mashiach comes, says the Rebbe Ein Pirush. God forbid to think that this means Shibatlu Legamri, they're going to be completely batel. V'la Gili Anavim Klal Chas v'Sholem, and the revelation of prophets is not going to be, because we know that a Torah is Zolit Yom Uchlefet, the Torah never changes, and the Torah is never batel. How could you say that a part of Torah, and particularly a part of Torah Shebeksav, is batel? Ella, so what is the meaning of this statement? Kol hanavi demasiyim libatel, says the Rebbe Shiyah, Erin Seif Baruch Hu Begilui, Baruch Hu Kol Kach Begilui Raviyat. When Mashiach comes, there's going to be an extraordinarily great revelation of godliness. And the nature of the revelation of godliness, which is going to be when Mashiach comes, is going to be so strong, that even the revelations which are found in the books of the prophets and the writings, Yubetelim, are going to become batel, insignificant, like the bittel of the rays of the sun, in the sun, compared to the Gilui Yossi love. When Mashiach comes, all Yidden are going to be Nevi'im, V'nibu b'nechem b'nei seichem. It's going to be an incredibly elevated time. And there's going to be an enormous amount of prophecy. It doesn't mean Yeshaya is going to be discredited, and Yirmiyah is going to be discredited, and the Teriyasa is going to be discredited, and Yecheskel is going to be discredited, chas v'sholem. It only means that when you experience a light of godliness, you personally, which is equal to or greater than the godliness found in the Navi, it's Shraga Batia Ramai Ahana. The Navi stops being distinctive. It stops standing out. It stops representing holiness because you're just as holy. So certainly when Mashiach comes, there's still going to be a Yeshaya and a Yirmi and a Tayasir and a Yecheskel and a Yeshua and a Sheftim and Shmuel and a Malachim and so on. But it's going to be bottled to the light of Mashiach, which is going to be constant. She'im hayes, even though Sha'aziv vada yesh le'ed rav bimkede b'yeser se'es me'ha'er ha'me'el ha'oris v'adorim aleha, that if the sun's light can come millions of miles out of the sun and reach the earth and give it light, life, and warmth, then inside the sun it must be even stronger than it is outside the sun. Inside the sun there's more power, more potency to the light of the sun than outside the sun. Nevertheless, we say that in the sun the light doesn't exist. Ella, the only idea is Shebim Kede, the way the light of the sun is in the sun, who batal, it is in a state of bittul, machmas eid, hashemesh, because it's in the presence of the sun itself, shu makar eid, which is the source of light. So the light of the sun in the sun is even more than outside the sun, and yet it doesn't have any relevance, it does not have any distinctive identity because the sun overwhelms it. Says the Rebbe on line 175, similarly, Kol HaNaviim Hasidim Li Batal, the concept that all prophets are going to be batal is that Be'er Gili Ein Seif Baruch Hu, there's going to be a great revelation of godliness. She has God lost love, which is going to be when the Mashiach comes, as it says, V'ro Kol Basar, V'ro Kol V'Gemet. Everyone's going to see godliness. And since the Mashiach comes, there's going to be a great revelation of godliness. The Nevi'im are going to be overwhelmed by the light of godliness associated with the Geulah itself, and you're not going to see their Or. Says the Rebbe Mashenke Megilas Esther. Al Zeh Omru, so the Gemara says, She Megilas Esther lay the bottle. Megilas Esther is different. Why? So Beklolos, the reason Megilas Esther is different is because it is as follows. All of the ideas that the Rebbe just shared are called Giluyim. What is the meaning of the word Giluy? You bring a light from heaven into earth. You bring a light from a source to a place which is by itself cold and dark and death, and you illuminate it and you warm it up and you give it life. So when you're talking about Giluyim, anytime you're going to describe a relationship between godliness and worldliness in the framework of Or, you have a mashpia and a makabel. You have the world and you have the godliness. So the light of Mashiach is going to be greater than any light of the Nevi'im. That's it. But there's another concept altogether. Another concept altogether is much deeper. And the second concept is not that the light of the Eibusha shines into the world, but that ha'cheshech atzmei yoeh, the darkness itself shines. You see the godliness of Teva, and it's not overt, it's not announcing itself, it's not dramatic, it's not dynamic, it's just natural. Since this world is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this world conforms to the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a totally seamless and natural and quiet way. And that's what Megilas Esther represents. Megilas Esther represents a godliness which is not higher, it's just completely different. It's not the same thing, but on a different level than the other Sfarim. It's a fundamentally different thing. The other Sfarim are Or, and when you contrast one Or to another Or, Kol HaNaviim B'Teilim, and Megilas Esther is Megillah of Esther. It's the godliness of concealment. And the godliness of concealment on the one hand is concealed. On the other hand, it reveals godliness in such a way where there's real unity. There isn't an imposition of the will of God on the world. There is a unity between the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His reality. They're one and the same thing. Ba'inyan, the Pshat is 178. As all the Gemara says, Esther men ateirim einai. Where is the Esther in the Tate? And the Gemara answers, Diksiv, anechi hasted, astir pane b'yemahu. I'm going to hide my face on that day. And we all know Teir Sabal Shem Tev, that it says a double lashon hasted astir, that the Rebbe says the hester alein is behester, that the Eibush is so concealed that you don't see the concealment as a concealment, you think that He's revealed. But there's a special diok that when the Pasuk says anechi hasted astir pane b'yemahu, there's two words. First is the word anoichi, and the other is the word panai. Anoichi we know from Matan Torah and so on is anechi misha anoichi. Anoichi is ani and a chof, which goes on keser. And the word anoichi denotes a lakus, which is higher than say the Rishtashos, higher than the Shemis, and so on. And of course, panai, the face of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, also means that the pnimius v'yatzmis of a lakus. And by Yom Hahu, when there's a maimed matzav of golas, when there's a maimed matzav of darkness, when there's a maimed matzav of helam v'hester, when there's a maimed matzav of gvuris, you say that there's a haster aster, Hashem is doubly concealed. But you say Anechi and Panai are the Hastir Astir. In other words, hidden within the Astir Astir is a higher level of Elokus than the Elokus which reveals itself through Or, through Havaya, which is available in good times, so to speak. Let's read it again. The Gemara says, Esther, where do you have in the Torah Esther's name? The Ksiv, and the answer is Anechi Hastir Astir Panai Bayemahu. I'm going to hide my face on that day. Now, of course, we know from Chassidus that the word Yom means Giloy, V'yikir Lakim La'od Yom. And we also know that the word Hahu means Helam. Hahu means there, or them, or him, a third person, which denotes an indirectness, a concealment of Elokus. So by Yom Hahu, on the day when the godliness of the Eibush is concealed, as the word Hahu denotes, hidden within the Hester Esther is Anechi and Panei. Shashchin amistater as begalo the Shchin hides in galos b'chinas v'yemahu in a way that the gilu is hahu. V'yem means gilu. Hahu means over there is concealed, because we're dealing with b'chim and al mistim and is galion. The godliness of this period comes from a very high level of concealment. So since it comes from a very high level of concealment, in terms of the human experience, it's very concealed, but in an ironic way, in a strange way, you're more in touch with the truth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The hineni contrasts it. Also, loving Ksiv, when Mashiach comes, the pasuk says, "Oh, Mabayema, who it'll be on that day." Behold, this is our God. Which we waited for Him, which we hoped for Him, which we trusted for Him. So the Rebbe says that there's a bechinas Hu, the godly level of Hu, which means Him or over there, goes on concealment, which is bechinas Sasan, the godliness is concealed. Yeh bechinas Zeh. Bayem hahu hine elikenu zeh, that the godliness of concealment is going to be revealed. Shu bechinas ha'izgalos, it's a revelation. Ki'ilu hu lenechach, as though it's direct. The hainu sheyoyred in teiv baruch, that the level of godliness is going to shine. That hamistater v'hanel, which usually blocked and hidden, bechinas alman steaming in the hidden worlds, and instead leyez begiloy ba'alman de'izgalion, it's going to be revealed in the revealed words. That's bayem hahu. So Hahu means Helam and Yom means Gili. Hahu means Helam and Zeh means Gili. So Mashiach comes, the concealed is revealed. Now there's two levels. In the idea that what is concealed is revealed. The first level of the idea that what is concealed is revealed is that you're bringing light into the darkness. The second level of what is concealed being revealed is that you see the light of the darkness itself. So the understanding is that Mashiach, when it says Bayem Hahu, is the light which is brought into the darkness to conceal it, and it's not the godliness of darkness itself. That is Purim. Mashenkin Bechinas Esther. Different, the opposite of Bayem Hahu is the concept of Esther. What is the concept of Esther? Shu bechinas Hastir, Astir, Ponei, Bayemu, Hashem hides His face, Bayemahu on that day. But that Bayemahu, Shafilu bechinas Bayemahu, even the level of La'asad Love, when there's going to be a Gili of Ahu, the godliness of concealment is going to be revealed. Through Giluyim, even on that day, Esther remains hidden. Esther is hidden even when godliness is revealed. Because Hester v'hahelim, because the concealment associated with Hester is lefisha sharsham b'chinas stimidikol stimin. Her real source is the hidden from all the hidden. Stimidikol stimin is an incredibly high level, but from stimidikol stimin, what comes out into the world is sosim, is concealed, is covered over. But what's covered over in this world is really revealing a deeper essence. V'al which is what the pasuk says, that is the alakus of Hester. There's the godliness of concealment. You learn Tanya. Learn Tanya, yeah, and you learn Shara, Yichad ve'Emunah, and you come across the idea of Hein Gvuraisav. Hein Gvuraisav means that all of us are very moved and very impressed by the revelations of Hashem. What's called the Tanya HaGodel, as opposed to HaGibur. The revelations of Hashem are very, very powerful. You see a miracle, you see the Torah, you see a tzaddik, they reveal the Eibush to you. And then there's the concept of Hashem concealing Himself. In an environment where Hashem conceals Himself, obviously you do not see the Eibishter. If you don't see the Eibishter, it's disappointing. But then there is the idea that in the concealment itself there is the Eibishter. In the concealment itself there is the Eibishter. And that's Ochin Ato Kel Mistater. Not that the darkness is replaced by a light, or a light shines in a way that the darkness receives it. But did you see the godliness of darkness itself? I mean, these two ideas are discussed in the Maamar of the Rebbe. The Rebbe has wonderful discussions, like a Purim discussions, where he talks about the two ideas of a darkness which is dispelled by light, and a darkness whose whole idea is that it's a Metzias Bifnei Atzmei, and the godliness that it reveals is the godliness of concealment. And that's what Purim is, and that's what Megilas Esther is. So although Megilas Esther is a sefer of Tanakh, and Tanakh is Torah, and Torah is Or. And when it comes to Or, we say that Kol HaNevi'im B'Teilim, the light of Mashiach is going to be even higher. The prophecy in the times of Mashiach is going to be greater than the prophecy by the Nevi'im. But Chutz Megilas Esther. Megilas Esther is going to be there also when Mashiach comes, because Megilas Esther is not a higher light than the light of Mashiach. It's not about light. It's about the godliness of concealment itself. Hine. Er Kazeh Gadol Miyed, such a light is very powerful. V'Ravkech, it's very strong. She'ein lei bittel, that this godliness has not become bottle, even when it's in the presence of the sun, and in the Nimshalis means alakus, it doesn't become bottle. She'er zeh, because this light ein ziv, is not a ray at all. It's the Eibishter himself. The Purim story, the alakus in Teva, is not a revelation of Hashem in a certain way, it's an expression of Hashem himself, how the world is the Eibishter himself. So that's the Pshat, Kol HaNevi'im B'Teilim, Chutz Megilas Esther. Line 190. V'chein halachas. Just like Megilas Esther stands out even when you have the Giloim of Yemei HaMashiach. Because the Giloim of Yemei HaMashiach are an incredibly great light, but they're a light. And Megilas Esther is not about light, it's about the godliness of darkness, which is distinctive even then. The same is true when it comes to Torah versus Halacha. You know, there's a Sikha from the Rebbe, which is a very deep Sikha. There's a lot of nuance, a lot of subtleties. The Rebbe spoke to Sikha in Tishrei Tafshin Mem Beis. It was for the Siyam Rambam, the last Siyam Rambam, the most recent Siyam Rambam before the stroke Le'aleinu Le'ata. And the name of that Sikha, it's a Lashon which is based on a Yerushalmi, Halaches, Ha'elu Einon B'Teilim Le'elim. I think that's the Nusach. That these laws are forever, the halachas are forever. And the way the Sikha goes, it contrasts the word halacha from the word mitzvah. And the argument that the Rebbe makes is that mitzvah is not going to be when Mashiach comes, because there's not going to be a commander and a commandee. The Eibishter and the Yid, the world, that reflect, that do as the Eibishter wishes, becomes one. Pardon me, and you can't have a mitzvah from a mitzvah to a mitzvah. On the other hand, there will be halachas. Because halachas is not Hashem commanding us to do something, but us doing. And the way the Sikha develops is a whole bunch of details, as Machlekes the Shem Shemaim Sefer L'Eskaim, all kinds of delicious little details, but the Nekuda is when Mashiach comes, we're not going to do mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are going to be done by us. Our guf is going to be a part of a lakus. And because our guf is going to be a part of a lakus, so minafshe kakara, what the Eibishter wants will do, so to speak, automatically. And that's the content of halachas. And that's one aspect. Another thing that Rebbe brings in that Sikha is that when Mashiach comes, the halacha is going to be like Rambam. Because the Rambam wrote a mikvah Zechal Teira Shebek Kula. And he writes, Milsa B'li Taima, right? The Rambam does not have Taimei halacha. It's just the halacha itself. So nowadays we don't paskin like that Rambam because you have to have Taimei halachas. But La'asad Love is going to be Ma'isa Godel, and we're going to paskin like that Rambam because the Rambam Sefer is only halachas. What I'm saying in other words is this. This is a fantastic thing to consider, to contemplate. Mitzvahs have many reasons. We call them taimei mitzvahs. Mitzvahs have many reasons. Some of the reasons of mitzvahs have to do with midas tevis, refining character, becoming a good person. Some mitzvahs and Torah have to do with gili alakus, b'al yenim, revealing godliness in the higher worlds. Some mitzvahs have the timing of bringing Elokus down into this world to involve itself in Avodas HaPirurim, Tshuva, Nisyanis, and many other things. The interesting thing is that no matter what time you give for a mitzvah, the mitzvah remains the same. Whether you're doing a mitzvah because of Midas Tevis or because of the Yachta Kuchabrichu Shchinte or Birurim, makes no difference. The mitzvah is the same. Why? Because the mitzvah is not a consequence of the tam is a consequence of the mitzvah. We don't do the mitzvah for this reason, or for that reason, or for the other reason. We do the mitzvah because the Eibishter said. Or in the lashon that we have over here, the halacha, because the Eibishter said. The halacha is the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what Hashem wants. Halachas means the rituals that we have to do in serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're constant, they never change. And the time change. You have in the Chassidus, the Maimarim, in the Sikha which comes before that Tishrei Sikha Nun Beis, the Sikha of Shavuos Nun Aleph, which is Terech Hadosh Amiti Teite. Those two Sikhas almost like a hemshech to one another. And in the Sikh of Terech Hadasha, the Rebbe discusses the idea that when Mashiach comes, we're still going to have mitzvahs leisaseh, things that you're not allowed to do, but it's not going to be because klipa exists. There's not going to be any klipa. The reason for mitzvahs leisaseh is because the only way to reach a higher aid is through shevei al tasa, through an inaction. The point is there are mitzvahs, and then there's taimei mitzvahs. The reasons for mitzvahs could be various. The reasons for mitzvahs could be many. The mitzvahs never change. The mitzvahs are an absolute. The mitzvahs are a constant, and that's called halach. So the seichel ha-Torah, the philosophy of Torah, the intellect of Torah, the scholarship of Torah can change. The way you take a mitzvah from the Torah could change. But the halacha, the fact that the Eibishter gave us a mitzvah on a level of alichei selam, this is constant, it never changes. Or to say it in different words. Same idea, but in different words. We all know the famous tumul, which is brought in so many Maamar Chassidus, particularly in Parshas Vayigash, the Gemara that discusses the question of Talmud Gadol or Maisa Gadol, Rabbi Akiva and Abtarfin, whether learning Torah is greater or doing mitzvahs is greater. Rabbi Tarfin says Maisa Gadol, and Rabbi Akiva says Gadol Talmud Shemei V'lidei Maisa. Rabbi Akiva says Talmud, learning Torah is greater than doing mitzvahs, but why Gadol Talmud? Because maybe the day Maisa, it brings you to do a mitzvah. So the Chazal say, Chassidus explains, it's brought in a lot of Sfarim, that nowadays the halacha is Talmud Gadol, which goes on Yosef as opposed to Yehuda. The most important thing is learning Torah, but the reason Torah is advantageous today is because it's maybe the day Maisa. It brings you to a deed. On the other hand, Maisa Gadol is just a dry performance of a mitzvah. Now, how can you have a dry performance of the mitzvah? The Torah doesn't teach you how to do this mitzvah. So of course, I'm asking a question which maybe I shouldn't ask. But the word is, you do the mitzvah from yourself, because you yourself are one with Elokus. But it says in Chassidus, from Kisvei Arizal, that when Mashiach comes, halacha is going to be like Rab Tarfin, Maisa Gadol. The most important thing is going to be in action. Now you have to have Torah to teach you about mitzvahs. L'asad lava, you're going to have the mitzvah from yourself, and that's called halacha. So in other words, the emphasis in the word halacha means just what to do, not how you figure it out, and not why you should do it. The halacha does not have a connection to the tam, the explanation for why we do the halacha, nor does it have an explanation to the tam, which means the process of how you extract that halacha from the Torah. There's just the halacha. Hashem gave us a mitzvah, and we have an action, and we do it, period. So it says in this Yerushalmi, with which we started today's shir, that the Yerushalmi says, the Nevi'im ba'ksuvim, Asidim le'batel, and Megilas Esther of halachas, einan Asidim le'batel. So we discussed in the first half of the class what it means that Megilas Esther in a bottle. Because the book of Esther is not a book of revelation. The book of Esther is the Keil Mistater, it's the godliness of concealment. And the same with true halachas. Halachas means just the instruction and the ritual of performing a mitzvah. Because that's what we call in Chassidus Ratzon, and that's the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That although it's mihislapshas in Torah, that you have a whole arichas nigeres hakedesh chavtes and so on, we know how to do mitzvahs from the Torah. But it's explained in Chassidus that even though we know how to do mitzvahs from the Torah, the mitzvahs come before the Torah. and they're beslapshus in the Torah, and we extract them from the Torah by learning the Torah. But in a mitzvah anyon, the mitzvah is ratzon ha'elyon. The mitzvah comes from Hashem's will, which is higher than Eraisa mechochma nafka. It's higher than Torah, and that's the pshat halach. That lost of love, we're going to have the halachas, because the halachas never change. They could never change, because they're one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So let's read it inside v'chein halachas. The same is true halacha. That just like when there's the greatest revelations of godliness, Megilas Esther will continue to be. Because Esther is not a higher light, Esther is the godliness of concealment. The same is true of halachas. It's not a higher light, it's the absolute unity between God and creation. I mentioned before the example of me'atzmei kakara, right? There's I think a Yishalmi, and it's brought in Teisvis and Bavli, that when it comes Moedim, and a person doesn't bow, shidrasei nasa nochash, his spine will become a nochash, and they're connected to the nochash akadmeni. On the other hand, we say about a yid, when it comes to Moedim, me'atzmei kakara, he bows without meaning to bow. He bows automatically. So the Rebbe's mother, Rebbe Tzimchanat Ibedetzel, she related that there was once in the house a minyan in the Dnepr Petrovsk in Yekaterinoslav for a fabrein for some purpose, and there was a fabrein in the house. So the Chassidim, the Anash, that gathered davened by Rabbi Leivik in the house. The Rebbe was 2 years old, Berach. No, it was not in Yekaterinoslav. It had to be in Nikolaev, because when they moved to Yekaterinoslav, the Rebbe was already 7. It was in Nikolaev, where the Rebbe's mother's parents lived. The Meir Shleima was the Rav. And there was Fabrengen for some occasion, and it was by them in the house. I don't know if it was in Rebbe Leivik's house or it was in his Shver's house, the Meir Shleima. And the Rebbe was a baby, mamish a baby. And with the Gestalt was talking Baruch Hu, it was Meirev to say Baruch Hu. And the Rebbe stood up, he held on to the side of the playpen, and he bent his head to say Baruch Hu. The Rebbe's mother saw this, she ran in and she pulled him out because of Ayin Hora. I think they had it also from the Rebbe Rashab about such things. But a child who b'chitzenius could not understand what he was doing, bowed. Me'atzmei kakara. That's a mashal for the idea of halaches einin b'teilim. The mitzvah is not something you do, it's the mitzvah is something you are. So just as your existence is your natural state, you're performing, and the halacha is also a natural state. And the Rebbe says, Shehem b'chinas Mordechai. Now we do mitzvahs because we take them from the Torah. Now we do mitzvahs because we be commanded. Now we do mitzvahs for this reason or for that reason, or Yossi Lavi, or some other reason. Yossi Lavi, there's not going to be reasons for mitzvahs, there's not even going to be commandments. There's going to be halachas. And the Rebbe says halacha goes on Mordechai. Now what's the connection with halacha and Mordechai? So the Rebbe says that it says in the same Gemara that we had before, Esther min ateirim minayin, of anechi haster aster. So it also says, Mordechai min ateirim minayin, the ksiv morderer. In Pashas Kisisa, you have the spices that were used for the ketores. And you also have the spices that were used for the Shemen HaMishcha, for the oil that was created to anoint the Kohen Gadol and the Beis HaMikdash and the Melech and so on. And one of the spices is called morderer. Derer means wild or free. And mor is the name of the spice. And the Targum translates the words morderer mira dachya. The derer means pure, dachya means pure. In Aramaic, a dalad replaces a zayin, so it's different as zachya, which means like zach. And mira is the name of the spice. Pirush, mira dachya. What is the meaning of the words mira dachya that combine in Aramaic, in Targum? To make the word for Mordechai, miridos shabamokim toir, a bitterness which is in a place of purity. So mira, which is a min psamim, is translated from the word miridos, bitterness. But bitterness in a place of purity. Says the Rebbe, dahainu halachas. Bitterness in a place of purity, this is the concept of halachas. Why? Because shehein devar avaya. Because halachas are the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'sharshanu mekeiron bechochma elo. The root and source is in the supernal wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, forgive me for adding this, but like I said, it says in Tanya V'cholu that the emes is that the mitzvahs come from higher than Chochmah. So what does that do with bitterness? And the answer is, Hamuluboshes bebechinas meridas. They're invested in bitterness. In other words, Gashmi is Gasus, Elam Hazeh. the material, the physical and crude elam hazeh, v'chumris, which is also coarse, ketrumes umaisis, like the physical use of wheat and barley and so on and so forth, wine and oil for truma and maiser and so forth. V'afilu with manamat meim. The Allah has to do even with things which are unclean, like shkotzim or muslim, insects and small animals and insects, that the halachas govern them as well. Asher hivdi lonu mehem, Hashem separated us from them. So halachas reaches even to the treifa things that the Eibishter says, lo teichel kol tayevu, we shouldn't eat them. And that's why halacha is connected to Mordechai, because what is Mordechai? It's a purity, it's a transcendence, it's an incredibly high level that's invested in cheshech, it's invested in the bitterness of the world. Mira dachya, a purity which reaches even to a place of bitterness and it remains pure. I'm thinking out loud, and you're not allowed to think out loud, and you shouldn't make these kinds of things up. That I'm thinking from Chassidus, the idea that there's an inyan of tahara which is higher than kedusha, like the shomesh and zat b'taherehi. Usually we say that tahara is lower than kedusha, but there's a madrega of tahara which is even higher than kedusha. The madrega of tahara which is higher than kedusha means how the Eibishter is not removed from the world; he's invested in the world. Kedusha means removed. And it's a madrega of Tara, which is higher than Kedusha, which is the source of the Neshamas Yisrael. I always think of it when you have Mondays and Thursdays. You have Shuv Mecharin Apecha, Hashem Elokai Yisrael, Shuv Mecharin Apecha, V'noma Ro Lamecha. In one of them, we call Hashem Toher, not Kaddish, but Toher. And Yagainu Ashehu Nachlonu. And this Tara, I'm just thinking, I'm speaking without a source, which is really not acceptable, that Pshat Merira Dachya means that there's a purity, which goes on Helam Ha'atzmi, on the highest level, which, because it's so high, is able to come down till the place of Meriras. Which is why it is written also in the Megilas Esther, it is a concept of 6 months with shemen, with an oil associated with moir. Moir means bitterness. And the way that Rabbi explained moir in this Maimer, moir means dealing with the concealment of a lakus in this world, the bitterness of Elam Hazeh. That Shem and Rebbechinas Chachmei Allah. Oil is a very high level. Hamalabash is Rebbechinas Meridas, which is connected to bitterness, which is the way godliness comes down to the very lowest level. And this contrast, this fusion, this duality of Shemen, Hamoir is the highest thing, because only the highest thing can come to the lowest level. Shein halachit shemalubashes begashmis. It's the laws which are invested in gashmis. So to say it in other words, everything that exists is a chelik elakaz, a part of the Eibishter, the shtik elakos. And halachis reveals it. Halachis means how you see Hashem in the physical things that the Eibishter governs. And you see Hashem in the physical things that Eibishter governs, not through some kind of revelation, but whatever they are, they're a lakus. Pasuk Zemedaber, this pasuk Shisha Chadoshim B'Shem and Ameir is discussing what happens before you go to Gan Eden. Albeit on Neshama the Gan Eden, when Neshama is to come to Gan Eden, we say Shisha Chadoshim B'Shem and Ameir and Shisha Chadoshim B'Psamim. Right? Yeah, this Bavus Tazach Mashpim Havzakocht Namamol Eichet. That before you go to the Rebbe, before you go to the Eibush, if you go to the Rebbe, you have to have Shisha Chadoshim B'Shem and Ameir. This is Tshuva. And Shisha Chadoshim B'Psamim, this is the Reichkeit of Chassidus. That's how it's explained in the Maimorim. I read and I heard, but I get to Reb Nissen Nemenov, when he talked about the Bocharim getting ready to go to the Rebbe, he would say, Shisha Chadoshim B'Shem and Ameir, this is the bitterness of Tshuva. And Shisha Chadoshim B'Psamim, learn Chassidus in the way that you experience the Reichkeit of Getlachat, the richness of a Lakus. And here we're talking about the Neshama going to Gan Eden, that there's Shemen Ameir. Shetzarach li is b'Shemen Ameir. You get to Gan Eden by bringing back the Shemen of Meir, of bitterness. Or Kamai Mezal, Lashna Gemara, the Alter brings this in Tanya. Ashrei Perek Mem, Ashrei Misha Bolakan v'Talmudei b'Yodeh. You come to Gan Eden and you bring along your Talmud. What's your Talmud? A godliness that spans worlds. A godliness which is not contained to a certain reality. There's godliness in the lower world, there's godliness in a higher world, there's a godliness in the higher world still, and then there's a godliness which doesn't know any of those constraints. It's universally the same, and that's called Halach. Shemen Ameir. In the greatest darkness, it's Shemen. And when the Neshama comes to Gan Eden, he comes with Talmud B'Yodeh, he brings along his Talmud. And the idea that these halachas are dafkin dvarim gashmiyim, because the Davar Gashmi reveals the absoluteness of this level of godliness. And again, he's going to bring 3 Mishalim here. But the point of all this is that it's a very high level of godliness, which is therefore why it's able to be godly even in the lowest world. But more precisely, it's not even godliness. It's an expression of how God and world are one and the same. So he brings 3 Mishalim. This year is Tafshin Ayin Ches. And this year the Maamar that we had from Lamed Ches, the Rebbe brought from the middle of Rebbe, the same 3 Mishalim. Benegay to the idea of Kol HaGavei HaGavei B'Yesi Yered L'Mata Mata Yesi. Same idea is bringing over here. But this is the Alter Rebbe. Here it's a few lines. The middle Rebbe is the big Ariches. What are the 3 examples? The first example is Mashal HaAvuka Shem'ir L'Merachak Miyed. The light of a torch, which shines very far, is proof that the torch is very powerful. And this is a mashal from Or. And V'chein Chavis Maleya, a full barrel. Shenismala Kol Gedei Seha, it's filled to overflowing. B'Shefer Ava Otzum, with a great and intense flow, Acha Nishpach L'chutz Be'ibud, that there's no room within the barrel, so that it bursts through and it falls out and it's wasted. And of course the Nimshal again is that when there's so much water in the barrel, it spills over. And this is not Or, this is Shefa, right? This is water. Shefa, Mhusdvarma. And the third example is Ashpa Atzmis. The in of procreation, of reproduction, which is the idea of Ashpa Atzmis, which is not Or, like the first mashal, it's not Shefa, like the second mashal, it's the Maila of both. It says the Rebbe, Ein Nebekat Nachia Gadol, children cannot procreate, only adults can. Because when you grow up, Yichnusa Beimech, and the Gadlus, you have a certain maturity, a certain depth. And that depth allows that you could bring your etzem till the tipa gashmis. You're able to procreate. And the process of procreation has to do with the tipa gashmis. Your essence is delivered through something very, very low. And in order to bring your essence to such a low level, you have a very, very high source. So you have 3 Mishalim, and I don't want to dwell on the Mishalim. I don't want to go into the Mishalim Bariches. I just want to make the point that what these 3 Mishalim bring out is when something has a very high source, it extends very low. And that's the Pshat Meir. Says the Rebbe on line 205, Kachini Alocha, some of the Bashas B'Tvorim, Gashmiyim, the idea that Alochas are in physical things. Hainu, this means Shabo, Meir Avuka, it's like a light of a torch, Hameir, Lemirachak, which is shining from very far. Umeachovish, and Ismala Kol Gedei Seho, like a barrel which is full to overflowing. Vishefer Ava Otzumach and Ishbach Lechutz. And the Rebbe mentions tangentially, V'zeo Simin Bracha. It's a bracha when things spill over. That Bayis Shenishbech Beyayin Kamayim, a home where water spills like water. This is a Maiden Dike Bracha. I heard from one of the Luz, I think I heard it from someone who was there, that they went to see the Rebbetzin. They had a very strong connection to the Rebbetzin because of Zalman Jaffe Alav Shalom. And the Rebbetzin used to really, B'chlal, when she hosted, she would prepare. And she would think about the people she was hosting and what they would want, and she would try to accommodate kakot and kagodl, everybody should have what they wanted. And she would serve even the children in these beautiful glasses. She had punch for the children, and a cup fell over and made a big stain on this beautiful white tablecloth. And the way I heard the story was that Rebetzin's reaction was spontaneous. It wasn't deliberate. The glass fell over and she immediately responded, "Oh, a siman bracha." She was so excited by the fact that a glass had fallen over and stained her tablecloth because it was a siman bracha. Her reaction was so spontaneous, was so natural, was so automatic. It was so clear that she wasn't saying it only to make another person feel good, which was certainly what she was doing, but it was simply how she felt. When something spills and makes a mess because it spills and overflows, it's a siman bracha. You know, you have an halachas of Bizu Yoichlin. There's all kinds of halachas about not mistreating food. So you have the questions that they used to make fountains by weddings of wine that would spill, and people would come and fill their glasses, and the rest of the wine would fall, and then sometimes it would be recycled, sometimes it would be lost. And the halacha is it's not considered Bizu Yoichlin under certain conditions. And the same is true throwing food on certain occasions. It's a sign not of affluence, but of blessing, of abundance. So the Rebbe says these mishalim bring out the idea that when something is very strong, it extends very far. The fact that this light comes all the way down to the physical level, Muvan proves, and it makes us understand that that the root of this light, the source of this light, and its root is a great torch. Even though if you had a candle which was nearby as opposed to a torch which is very far away, it would be more bright than the light of the torch which is very far away. Nevertheless, the fact that it shines from so far away and the light still reaches you, it indicates, it testifies, it proves, it establishes that the place of the light, and the source of the light is is incredibly great. And the torch is so great, which is why that this incredible light, it's never bottle, because there's an incredible potency. And the nimshal is that halachas are forever because they represent the idea of godliness shining from a very high level to a very low level. And again, I'm saying something I'm not allowed to say. Clearly the Rebbe is using the mashal of Eir to explain halachas. But what I'm saying is that the way it's explained in Chassidus, it's deeper than Eir. It's etzem. Halacha is, like I told you from the Sikha from the Rebbe, from Tishrei Tavshin and Beis, that there's going to come a time when there's going to be Yom Shem Bem Chayfetz, a human being's physical goof is going to be Elikus. And I don't know what kind of free will there's going to be. But you're not going to have to do mitzvahs. You're going to be mitzvahs. So when it comes time to do a mitzvah, it's going to happen automatically, because this is the mitzias of the Eibush, this is the mitzias of the creation. They're one and the same thing, and that's such halachas. But the phenomenon of halacha is shemen ameir, is mira dachya, that it comes in such a high place that it's godliness even on the lowest levels. So the Rebbe now goes back, v'chein Megilas Esther, just like we spoke about halachas and Mordechai, we go back to Megilas Esther. That agam shanes shel Purim hay melubish b'derech hateva, the miracle of Purim is concealed in nature. Al pi Achashverosh, to the intercession, to the involvement of a king whose name was Achashverosh, says the Rebbe, to be sure, mizeh moving, which proves that the root of this light and this revelation that happens through a goy in chutz la'aretz b'derech hateva is lamayla, who is higher madreges ayenes made from the highest levels. Like the torch and the overflowing barrel, that it overflows all of its boundaries outward. So you have a Yerushalmi that speaks specifically about Megilas Esther and about halachas. And the Rebbe explains what's the pshat in this Yerushalmi. The time when there's a maximum gili of oyer. Megilas Esther is still special because it's higher than it. And halachas are still special because it's higher than it. And then he says one more thing. This is another thing. In addition to the idea of kol hanavim b'teilim, it says kol hamoyedim b'teilim. It's different by Mechazal. That all the Yom Tevim, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot are going to be bottled, chutz mechaniko Purim. And of course, I love to point out that there's three madreges in this inyan. It says kol hamoyedim b'teilim, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot are bottled. Chutz mechaniko and Purim are not bottled. And what's the third madrege? You have the madrege of Yehavchu Yomim Eil L'Sosanu L'Simcha V'Emes V'Ashalom Ahevu, that the tiny days, the fast days, Asara B'Tevis and Shivasa B'Tamaz and Tisha B'Yavin, same Gedalia are going to become Yom Tevim Ersht. So it's three levels: a Yom Tov that's bottled, a Yom Tov that continues, and a Yom Tov that's brand new. And basically, the idea is the same. Every Yom Tov which has to do with oil, the oil of Mashiach is going to be greater than it. Every Yom Tov, which has to do with Etzem is higher than Oir. And therefore Purim and Chanukah, since they're miracles associated with Mesiras Nefesh, and they come from the Yiddish Mesiras Nefesh, without any cheshbonis, it reveals Etzem, and because it reveals Etzem, it's going to be also when Mashiach comes. And then of course the transformation of fast days into Yom Tov is going to be even a higher representation of that, because the times of maximum darkness will show itself to be a time of maximum law between the Eibush and the Jewish people. As you know, Zicher, the Medrash Eicha, the Chazal, which is brought, that Titus came into the Beis HaMikdash and he found that the Kruvim were Mu'udin Zebazeh, right? The Kruvim, when the Eibush and Yidden were in a good condition together, the Kruvim would face each other. When the Eibush and Yidden were not in a good condition, they would face away from one another. At the moment of the Churban, they were hugging each other, they were in an embrace. And Titus took out these Kruvim and he showed them to the Jewish people and said, look, your God mocks you. You're being murdered by the millions, and he's saying he loves you. So it's brought in Chassidus, the maximum moment of Ahava was the moment of the Churban. Because the moment of the Churban destroyed the Beis HaMikdash and preserved Yidden and preserved Yiddishkeit. But at that time it was a terrible Avlus. Avle was Avelis. When Mashiach comes, you're going to see the Ahava of the Chodesh Menachem of. And then it's going to be greater than any other Inyan. So this class, right, we read 50 lines of the Maamar, discusses the idea that Purim, Megilas Esther, Purim, Halachas, represents Etzem, which is higher than Gila, it's going to be the Yossi Lavi. And we learned it as if there's no Maamar, right? Our Maamar is about Yaveu Levush Malchus. We avoided, we didn't mention Levush, we didn't mention Keser, we didn't mention Sus. We just learned a Maamar, which, and by the way, there are many other Maamarim in the Torah itself that address the same idea. And Mitzvah Hashem, next time, I'm planning, Liadi, to finish the Maamar. We're going to go back to Keser Malchus, and we'll revisit Levush Malchus, and we'll reintroduce, or we'll introduce for the first time, Sus HaMelech.